Hi, Karen. Just reiterating the message in the chat. There's a few people expected to attend, so if we can give them a few minutes, we'll get started just after 2. So bear with me for a few minutes, and we'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll get started in a few moments' time. There's a few more expected to be attending, so we'll give them a minute or two to join, and I'll be with you very shortly. Well, it's 2 o'clock. Whilst we're waiting for others to join, I will just introduce myself. My name's Paul Kay. I'm a director at Quiqsolutions, and we're a software provider. I will give you a bit more background shortly once we start the meeting proper. Thank you very much for joining me. I think here's Bharat. He's just joined as well. Hi, Bharat. Glad you're able to join this afternoon. I'm going to talk about. Hi, Chris. Hope you're well. Just getting started here. I will share my screen and take you through the order of play for today. So, first of all, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And as far as today's concerned, I want to take you through a new tool that we've been developing with IHEEM to show you what that looks like and give you an opportunity to ask me any questions. Please use the chat facility, or at the end of the meeting, I'll be happy to take questions. Make that a bit bigger there. Background about our company. Apologies if you already know us. I think some of you may, some of you may not. And then in particular, what's involved in this tool, how the workflow works, and a demo of the system to show you how it works in practice. So Quiqsolutions are a software house. We were formed in 2011. Myself and one other chap started the business. We were acquired by a larger company called Citation in September of last year. So we're now part of a big group specializing in all things to do with compliance and assurance, really. We provide software. We have a standard software platform which is adapted for many different requirements. So we have it for things like CQC compliance. We have about 700 social care customers who use it for that. We have a tool in aseptic pharmacies, which is used across England and Wales by about 150 NHS trusts. We have various other versions of the same tool. So this is a standard platform that can be adapted to work with any quality standards. And we come from a background in estates facilities of providing solutions for PAM. So we have a version that includes all of the SAQs from PAM, and it really has a number of aspects. So one is the self-assessment, so recording evidence of compliance against the quality standards. Then it's about doing something about it. So we have action plans which you can link to the standards that you're working on. We have document management. We have an audit tool, so you can build your own audits and surveys on the system, or in this case, we can pre-configure them. So it's a very flexible platform, very powerful platform. We think of ourselves as the spreadsheet killers, which is perhaps something that's very relevant with as far as PAM is concerned, where to complete a spreadsheet for a trust is quite an onerous task, especially if you are moving it around lots of people who can't all access it at the same time. So we have a more elegant solution, but I'd just ask that you think of it in terms of it with an open mind, because it's something that could be configured for any quality standards across an NHS trust. So why do this? It's about providing a real-time view of the compliance position. It's about having controls, having visibility of your strengths and weaknesses. It's having the ability to report and analyze the situation on an ongoing basis. It's about efficiency. It's about saving time in coming up with your compliance and assurance. It's about accessing the data that you might collect on an ongoing basis to give you a really rounded view. It's really an insurance policy that says you're aware of your strengths and weaknesses, you're able to act on them with the action plans, and then you'll be able to report on them so you can show progress to the powers that be. And ultimately, it's about driving improvement and improving safety across an organization by shedding a light on the things that you could do better, and then capturing them and making sure they actually get done. So this tool has really come out of the system we've developed for PAM, which is used by about 30 NHS trusts currently. And we met with IHEEM probably a year and a half, nearly 2 years ago, who were interested in what we were doing, and we looked at potential areas for future collaboration. And it became obvious that there was a need for introducing more digital solutions around the AE audit process. And IHEEM, with their unique position as an accreditor of AEs, as an organization that helps develop the standards and things like the HTMs, this became an opportunity to develop new functionality over and above what PAM would require. So this has a number of aspects. One is we've worked with the technical committees at IHEEM to develop standardized AE audits. So if you work with a AE accredited with IHEEM, they can be provided with a digital version of an audit with the content sort of guaranteed by IHEEM. So they guarantee to update it in line with the latest changes in guidance or legislation. It also includes pre-audit questionnaires. So ahead of an audit process, information can be requested by an AE, which is then presented to the AE to hopefully streamline the whole audit process. So things that they might otherwise be looking at the start of an audit have already been provided by the trust. We also have the self-assessment platform, which is for a trust to use to show how they are year-round, really meeting deeper questions based on the HTMs and other technical areas, rather than just the questions that PAM has in it. So it's a deeper dive, certainly, than the PAM system on its own. In conjunction with IHEEM, it's an ongoing process. I think we're sort of at the start of a longer journey, but we have pre-audit questionnaires and audits for these 6 technical areas: decontamination, electrical, fire, medical gases, ventilation and water. We also have a self-assessment tool based on the HTMs and other technical standards for asbestos pressure systems, as you can see there, confined spaces, lifts and policies. So that's the scope, but we're already looking at some other areas, including mechanical engineering. We're looking at some developing some standards for PFI handback. So the more people get to hear about it, the more opportunities there are to perhaps increase the scope and include more areas in it. So just to go through the workflow, if you're using this platform, an AE will ask us to set up a secure area and send a self-assessed pre-audit questionnaire ahead of the audit. That gets filled in by the trust, who send it back to the AE. The AE then can look at that information, request more information if needs be, or if they're happy, they can then carry out the audit using the standard templates. Once the audit is complete, they make their recommendations with recommended actions. At that point, if the trust is using the self-assessment tool I'm about to show you, then they can take those actions on board within the tool. You can update their PAM submission if they're using that digital version. If not, it produces a PDF copy of the report, which they can then act on in their own way. So there's not a compulsion for the trust in this relationship to use the self-assessment tool. It can stop at that point, and the AEs they work with can just produce you a report, albeit in digital format, but without linking it into the application. So it's easier for me, rather than to try and describe how it's working, for me to show you this. So apologies if any of you are familiar with the platform already by using the PAM system, but if not, I'll take you through the application and what it does. It's based on permissions, so we can set up access to specific domains for specific users. So if you're in charge of ventilation or water or whatever technical area, we can give you access to that particular area that represents your role. And what we're looking at here is the version of our system which has PAM. So these are all the PAM questions, and then the HTM tool is available as a bolt-on module. So if you've got PAM, you can have it as an addition. If you haven't got PAM, you can have it as a standalone, or you can have it with PAM. So you can have any sort of combination. And these dashboards reflect how much evidence there is, and the key shows me that these areas that it's covering are ventilation, water, LV, HV, electrical, decon, etc. So it's giving me a high-level view on this example across those technical areas. If I'm carrying out ongoing self-assessment using this tool, I can go to the assurance menu, or I could click on the relevant section in the dashboard to take me there, and then I can go into the technical area that I'm interested in. So let's say we're looking at ventilation. My apologies as the whirring thing goes around, because I think we're on Teams, it's going a bit slow. But once the screen hopefully will refresh, here we go. This is similar functionality to PAM because it's using the same software, but obviously with different content. So as an exercise, ongoing for a deeper dive than necessarily PAM might give you, you can look at these questions, you can see the sorts of areas they cover, and to answer a question, you click on the little magnifying glass on the right. So do you have a appointed authorized person? Are they suitably trained? To answer that question, I click again here. So it's a framework for building evidence on how you meet the question and for rating yourself and your various locations in relation to that particular question. So this is a fairly straightforward one. Do we have an AP? Is their training up to date? The questions have suggested answers which are linked to RAG ratings. So does your APV, in this case, have appropriate training? And were they appointed in writing by the designated person? As an example, do you have any supporting evidence? So the examples will signpost things that you could potentially use to support your evidence statement. You can attach the documentation. So you might have a copy of the training records or the appointment records or something like that in relation to this particular role. And you can also set a reminder. So although we might be compliant now, you might not be in 3 months, 6 months, whenever. And each question in the tool has a little prefix. So the A stands for annual. So you should review this at least annually. But obviously, if you're not compliant, then you can set a date to reflect the urgency. So let's say, for example, the APV hasn't got adequate technical knowledge. I can set a reminder and I can risk rate based on the view for that particular question. I can create multiple statements. Once I set my reminder, I can assign ownership, so I can own it myself, or I can make somebody else the owner. Whoever owns it will be reminded by email on this date, so you can forget about things. If you've pushed something into the long grass for a year's time, then out of the blue in a year's time, you get an email saying, please look at this. If it's urgent, set a more nearer term reminder. I can create multiple evidence statements for the same question. So I might have different aspects I want to report on or different locations. I can even have multiple copies of this, so I can report separately for each location if I wish, and then have an oversight of all of the component locations to come up with an overall view for the trust. But ultimately, it's about going through all of those questions in turn, and then that information can be shared as well with the AE as part of that AE audit process. If I need a summary of my evidence, I can click here and it will summarize all of the evidence I've got. So there's the one we've just done. It's on that summary. If I want a more sort of printed output, I can export it. I can print it as a PDF or onto paper. There are also lots of other report options through the report writer that comes with this. So you can report on any of the standards, you can report on activity, you can do a trend analysis, so you can report over time and things like that. So it's a framework. This is the self-assessment part. If I put the shoe on the other foot and we then look at what the AE audit process looks like through the tool, I will take you through that now. So let's say I'm the AE for decontamination, or the AED. The IHEEM AEs will have their own logins, their own interface, and they will be able to select the hospitals or trusts that they have a relationship with. This will enable them to build up a history and records against each of the locations they're working with. So let's say they're working with the trust. Let's say the trust has been filling in some information in relation to decontamination. They can go on, they can look at that evidence and use that as a guide to sort of show them what areas are being worked on and what the trust thinks are their own strengths and weaknesses. The AE would then trigger a pre-audit questionnaire if they're planning to come on site and do their AE audit, be it at a location or for the trust as a whole. And trust recipient of this will then be given a form to fill in. So this is the decontamination version. So what have you been doing in terms of previous audits? Can you attach a copy of your cleaning regime and so on? So you can see there are various sections to fill in as a checklist, but with supporting information. So please upload all of the relevant training information in relation to decontamination. So it can be looked at in advance by the AED in this case. Some of the answers will have the option to add multiple answers, so you can just add another, and if you've got more than one file of information, you can add it there. As you complete a section, you say that's done, next section. And if you use the save for later, it will save everything you've done to that point until you get to the end of the form, where you can say the whole thing's done and submit it. In this case, because I haven't filled the whole thing in, I'm just going to save it for later, and I can give it a reference so I can go back to it. So let's say this is my June 24 pre-audit questionnaire. So that's now saved on the system. If I go back to it, it will have the content that I'd previously entered already saved on there, and I could add more content on there and either save for later or submit it when I'm ready. So the AE is notified as soon as the pre-audit questionnaire is finished with a link that opens up the pre-audit questionnaire. They can see all the attached documents. They could request more information. They might reopen it and ask you to provide further information, or they might just ask you to email them or respond to other questions they might have. Then the audit itself, in this case, in decontamination, there was already an audit in place that had been developed across really the UK, something called the JAG audit, the Joint Advisory Group. But in other cases, they've been specifically developed with IHEEM and with the technical committees. Just in this example, in decontamination, it was already there. So you can see it's a template. Some of the questions are checklist, other ones are written questions. Some of them have the opportunity for evidence or comments. And at the end of the audit process, the AE can make an overall judgment. Here's my view of EWDs. Overall, I think it's fine, so I'm going to say it's green. And at the end of the process, having gone through each of these areas with their summaries and their suggested actions, the AED can say, yeah, that's fine, all done, sign it, and submit it. Now, I'm not going to submit it because I haven't filled everything in. I'm just going to save my work for up to that point. So two things could happen once the audit is complete. If you have the digital version, i.e. our self-assessment tool, you're notified and it will attach the audit to the relevant section for decontamination in PAM, as well as in the HTM tool, in the more detailed tool. So you can open it there and then maybe take on board the actions. If you don't have that end of the equation, you could just print the audit out. It will be sent to you as an email, as a PDF, and then you can act on it and respond in whatever way you might normally do with your existing systems. So if we go to the trust view, just to show you what you might do with it. So the trust would see for decontamination that there's been an audit, and it would display in the appropriate section. So there would be because I didn't finish the audit, it's not actually going to show here, but it will show that there is an audit in place, and then you can respond with the appropriate actions. So if you identify that I don't know, maybe the evidence on the audit was you haven't got sufficient evidence of your signed reporting, we can create an action plan to address it. So the action plan template follows something called SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-driven. So we need to update our reporting. You can put as much information in these fields as you wish. You can risk rate the action plan. Say it's relatively high risk, we'll make it amber. You can I think somebody might be trying to join. We have a title for the plan, and whoever owns the plan can then apply it to other users. So we can have a collaborative approach whereby the person with responsibility can delegate some of the actions from the plan to others in the trust. So maybe the head of estates invites somebody, the AP for decon, to be involved in the plan or whatever. So you can apply it to those users. They can all add their own notes. They can all add their own documents to the plan. We can set a deadline. So let's say I want it done by the end of the month, and a reminder date. And everybody who's involved in the plan gets alerted by email on those dates. As the plan develops, you can use the progress bar to show how far it's progressed. And when the plan is complete, the owner of the plan can be reminded by, will be reminded by email on the system. And all my actions as a user of the system, as I log on, it gives me as a task list. So I can see my action plans, I can see when they're due for review, and then I can just click on them to update them. So do I need to update my evidence, or do I need to update my action plan? I can open them both from here. As I say, they're linked to those alerts and reminders, so the system will tell you when it's time to do them. Once you sign off the plan, you're basically saying it's complete, but it keeps a copy of every action plan you've ever done. You can duplicate plans if you need to do something similar in future. You can also report on them and reopen them even if you need to, if the same plan hasn't quite been finished. So it's a mechanism for managing compliance. These technical areas are a deeper dive than PAM. It works in the same way, so it complements PAM, but the unique part is obviously the AE audits, having the audits linked into the same system. So over time, it will generate a history of those audits, and the the resulting actions from those you can then take on board through the same platform. Couple of other areas. So from a reporting point of view, if you want to know where things are up to against all of the standards, you can run reports, which I'm going to do here. There are various different report types that you can run. You can save reports and it will remember the reports and just upload, add the latest data. So this is giving me a view of all the different questions in these areas. The ones with highlighted have been rated and have a number there, tells me how much evidence we've got. I can report over time, so it will do a trend analysis. So I can see, compare compliance on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, or even annually. So you can do a year-on-year comparison through the system of your compliance. If you're interested in the activities of users, be it evidence or action plans, you can run evidence reports. You can specify particular users, or you can specify particular status. So show me all of the evidence which is due or overdue. And you can also search within here, so you can find any matching words that it will find within the evidence that it's got on here. You can even click on it and open the evidence and update it from this report as well if you wish. All of the reports have exports, so if you want to run your own analysis and do a deeper dive, then you can do so. There is a document management capability, so you think that you want to use as evidence, you can cross-reference them against the standards. You can set reminder dates. So if you've got risk assessments or other information you want to use, SOPs, policies, anything that you think might be used to support your evidence, you can upload it in advance, and then it's available for you to attach as evidence. There is a read log, so you can see who has or hasn't confirmed they've read a document. And if you want to get more involved, you can build your own audits or surveys. There is an optional module for creating any sort of electronic form. So the Survey Audit Builder opens up a whole load of tools where you can define the questions that you want to ask. You can build paper forms, and then you can set up schedules. So it will automatically email the appropriate person when it's time to complete a document or a form. Then once they've filled it in, you can apply comments and action plans to those documents. If you're using it for audits, for example, that you might build yourself, then those audits can have resulting action plans, which are all recorded and reported on in the same way. The final thing I wanted to just get you thinking about is if you are part of an ICB or if you want to work with other trusts, there is the capability to have overviews, so you can compare information. If you're in a single trust, you might be comparing information across multiple locations. If you're in a trust part of an ICB, you can be confirming what that looks like across those multiple locations. And we also have a peer review function. So if somebody externally reviews your evidence, they can come up with a view. Maybe it's a consultant. It could be working with other trusts and teams within those trusts. So somebody could look at what your evidence is and make comments, say, well, I agree or disagree with what you're saying. Here are some comments. And you have an alternative RAG rating, which is a reviewer's rating. So you think you're green, I think you're amber, based on my view of what's going on. The reviewer can also look at any action plans that may exist and see the details of those at the same time and add their comments to that action plan. So it's got a lot of capabilities. Not everybody might want to use everything, but there could be elements of this. So we're happy to sort of tailor the way we implement the system for individual trusts and individual requirements. And it's a modular approach. So you have the PAM module on its own, or you can have the HTM AE tool on its own, or you can have the two together, and then you can bolt on that Survey Audit Builder as an extra module if you wish. The licenses are charged on a per user basis, and you can buy them as a 10-user license or buy additional groups of 10, depending on how many people need access to the system. So I hope that's given you a reasonable idea of what the system is doing. Just a couple of points, really. That content of the HTM tool and the pre-audit questionnaires will be updated by IHEEM on an ongoing basis, but it is exclusive content for IHEEM AEs only. So bear in mind, if you're working with a non-IHEEM AE, that won't be available for that AE relationship unless they become accredited with IHEEM. Now, there's nothing to stop you creating your own audits if you work with non-IHEEM AEs, or we could even build them for you, but there would be a cost involved for our time in doing that. But if you want the guarantee of the content, then the IHEEM audits will give you that. And you know, the system, if your IT guys are interested, if you're interested in implementing this, complies with things like the NHS toolkit and cyber essentials. But we'd be happy to engage with your technical teams and answer any questions they have, the IT teams, if they have them. So I've done all the talking. I'm going to be quiet now for a moment and put it out there and ask if anybody's got any questions that they'd like to ask. If you put your hand up, I could unmute you, or you can type your questions through the chat. Anybody want to start the ball rolling? Now, either you're all asleep because I've bored you, or I've done such a good job that you've got no questions, or maybe you're just thinking of them and you want to. So I'll give you a moment or two. Just to give you an idea on costs, if that's something that you're considering. I'll come to you shortly, Bharat. The PAM module is £2,000 a year for a 10-user license, as is the HTM module. So you can have either one, and that includes support and updates. The additional users, if you have more than 10, would be charged at £1,000. Sorry, £1,000 per 10 users as an update. So 2,000, 3,000, or 5,000, depending on what modules you have. Bharat, are you unable to unmute? Let's see if we can. Do you want to ask me a question?
All right. Can you hear us now?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. It's my colleague Martin's got a question for you. When will you have a fully populated demo that has a full set of demo data in there? HV, LV, medical gases, the whole lot? Because at the moment it's just empty, so you can't really see the total functionality of it, and it'll just go and actually show people how much data you've got to put in, because it looks hungry. And to go and put all that in, yes, it's going to be the initial kickoff to get it all in to start with. All the APs, all the CPs, all the AEs, getting them registered into there and putting all that in, especially since we already get the if you want, questionnaires and all the questions as such from our AEs, because ours are all, if you want, IHEEM registered, so we've all got their peer review certificates, and this seems like what Pete's always been wanting to try and do, to go and actually grab hold and actually hold the formal register of the APs, which he's been on about wanting to do for a fair few years.
Well, there's a number of questions in there.
There was. I thought I'd get in and go all for one.
In answer to what it looks like when it's fully populated, and how much effort would it take to populate it? I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with PAM and how long that takes. It is not as many questions as PAM, although PAM covers all of soft FM as well, as you're aware, and has new modules for things like facilities, for maturity, and for helipads and goodness knows what. It's a very good point about how long it takes to fill it in. I think most of the questions would be quarterly or annually in terms of how often they need filling in. And I wouldn't necessarily have my entire estates team filling this in. So you wouldn't necessarily have a license for every competent person. You might have your AP or the estates leads as users of the system, but it's not a CAFM system, it's an assurance system. So it's supposed to be like a higher level view of compliance that not necessarily everybody would need to have a license for. It's early days. I don't know, being honest, how long it's going to take to fill it in. What I do know is from my experience with PAM, where people were using the spreadsheet version of PAM, we saved about 2/3 of the time for a lot of the trusts that used it. So it went down from sort of 3 months to maybe 5 or 6 weeks to complete their PAM.
So for all the AP data,
Yep.
all of the APs that have got all of their training dates, all of the courses that they've taken, all the dates at which then they need to take their refreshers, the dates at which the AE went and vetted them, assessed them, gave his approval, then that going to the DP for them to appoint them, for the dates of them to be all put in. Will it be a master upload sheet that can be done? So all of that then can be searched. So you can just fill in an Excel spreadsheet and then do an auto upload of all of our APs and the CPs.
I mean, that's a great idea. It's not something we offer right now, but it makes sense to me. I mean, what we could do is build a framework where you maybe rather than a spreadsheet, but the equivalent of a spreadsheet on our system where you have a form, we build in a form, you just fill it in across all the different technical areas, and we can then move that data automatically from one form to the other, so you don't have to fill it in. But it's not there now. I'm just saying it would be quite a development to do.
Did that. Landmark did that for when we used to do the CRCs. So you used to go and fill in all the data for that for every single property, every single meter reading, all the data, and then you just add your normal standard if you want reference point. So each one of the APs will have their reference name, and then no matter which order the data was in, it auto uploaded it in and filled in every single field, which makes it a lot easier for everybody. Because if not, I mean, the APs, what, 20 odd APs and then about 30 odd CPs, then you've got each one of the AEs. Then it's across 3 separate sites. Senior wants to go and actually operate and run it. All of their, if you want certificates, their certificate of appointment, their training certificates, all have to be uploaded into this. It is going to be hungry.
It is. I agree. I think IHEEM are working on something online along those lines as a register. Because if you remember last year, I think NHS England were looking, weren't they, at developing their own register, but I think they've now moved away from that.
Tanya was already looking at doing the thing for when you attend the conferences. If you're already a member, when you actually scan your QR code, it automatically drops it straight into your own CPD. So you don't need to be doing it. And for the ones that are not, they've just got the reference code, and then it picks up all the data and puts it in.
I think we've got to look at something like that, haven't we? I mean, we've got an opportunity here if we can get the platform to really sing for people and save serious amounts of time, and holding all of that information. As you say, if you take all of those people, 50, 60 people or whatever, whose details you've got to store, including all of their records and CPDs, that, as you say, that's a massive job. So we're certainly all ears, and there's going to be a user group for people using this tool who will be able to come up with suggestions and ideas. So I think it's something as developers we would certainly listen to, and potentially going forwards could be something that we could develop for you. Susan, I saw your question. If your colleague would like to see this system, maybe we could do a one-to-one. I think this call has been recorded, so if I can share the recording, I will do. But if there's any issues with that, or if you'd prefer a one-to-one, then just drop me a line, and I'll be very happy to take you and any other colleagues through the system. You're in Cornwall, actually. There, Cornwall are a customer of ours. We have a safeguarding tool called the SAS tool, which the trust already uses. So it'd be good to talk about this as well. Barrett.
Yeah, this is a question from me really on this. It's just regarding the PAM. I do the trust PAM returns, the whole shebang. So I do agree with you in terms of the admin of it and cutting and pasting spreadsheets, sending it out. So that's something I'll probably contact you separately to see, if you could give us a demo on that, because for me that's the biggest thing about PAM is sending it out. I generally the best way I do it is to kind of just cut and paste and send it out to individuals, ask for the return, and then holding all the evidence folders or having links to evidence folders. So that's something that would be of interest to me. Now, once that's done and you've collected your data on PAM, would that automatically feed into the actual online version, or is that kind of an aspiration that you're looking to achieve?
It's something, since we came up with this software, something that we've been banging on about with NHS England. We have the capability of squirting that report with all of your RAG ratings across all the domains to them. Unfortunately, their portal doesn't have that capability. So at the moment, we're stuck. So you'd have to log on to the portal and just copy across the high-level RAG ratings for each of the domains. So that would take you maybe an hour or two. But we hope that more than outweighed.
By the amount you've got to do, it also kind of creates chances of where you might just misinterpret or just put, RAG rated slightly wrong because you're going through and they copied it from A to B. But that's the whole idea is to kind of have the link, so that once you've done it there, you're not having to, there's not an opportunity of making a mistake by, a typo or something like that. So it does happen, it's happened to me. So,
well, I think we'll certainly keep the pressure on. If you attend any of the PAM user group meetings,
yeah, I'm part of the workshop, so
it's regularly talked about, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a regular thing.
Yeah, we're ready if they are, but I don't think they are. So that's the problem.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to contact me for a wider demo of PAM with your team, again, just drop me a line, and I'll be happy to arrange a one-to-one. Any more questions? I think that was the sort of amount of time that we had earmarked for the session today. If I can find the recording, I will share it with the group. I think because these webinars, they do automatically record, so I should be able to find a recording. But if not, Susan, I'll let you know, and we can maybe make another arrangement. Any more questions before we wrap up? Okay, well, I'll assume that's a wrap for now. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that was interesting and given you some food for thought. I'm very happy to engage with any of you individually. So if you want more information or to arrange further demos with a wider team, then please get in touch with me. Have a good week, everybody. I hope the weather's reasonable where you are, and we can maybe get in touch again in future. So thanks again. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.